Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm talking to the lovely Suzie Bartle, who is the founder of Well Spirited PR, an international PR agency that helps conscious people and brands share their stories in the media. Now, you may know Suzie as the colourful publicist sporting purple hair and bright colours on Instagram, or you may know more about Well Spirited PR, which was born in June 2016 and boasts client placements on Loose Women, Vogue, The Times, BBC News, so many more. For more information, I'm going to link everything about Suzie and how you can find out more about her in the show notes. You can go to nickyraby.com/podcast. Enjoy the episode. Hello everybody, I'm talking to Suzie Bartle. Tell me who you are and if people don't know you, what you do.
So, hello everyone. I am the founder of Well Spirited PR. We get conscious brands and people out into the press. So that could be through representing people, or it could be teaching people how to get themselves visible.
And I find that actually as a business owner, sometimes that can be the hardest bit in the puzzle, because showing up on video or showing who you really are or putting yourself in a position whereby you might get feedback from people of, I can't believe she's doing this, or she's changed direction. Sometimes it can be, as we said before, the biggest self-development journey ever, in the way that we were just saying it's like looking in the mirror, a full-length mirror in terrible lighting, wearing satin, horrendous lights, just, it's very exposing.
It is, and my experience, and probably one of the biggest lessons I give people when it comes to getting visible is to remember that it's not about you. And I mean that with so much love. But that's where people trip themselves up, when they think the business is about you and when you think that what people are going to read is about you. Because it isn't. You're almost like a campaign face in a way for a message. And it's about going back to your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And if you can connect with that, suddenly your ego moves out of the way.
Yeah, your ego likes to come out to play, doesn't it? So let's go back a bit. Tell me about the early signs. What did you like doing at school? Was there a PR publicist dude, ladyette, in the mix from early on?
Sure. Yeah, it's quite funny. I didn't see it until I realised that Well Spirited needed to be created, and it was now it all makes sense now. So I was late for school when I was younger, when I was in senior school, because I was reading the paper. And that's a true story. My parents used to get Times every morning, and it would get delivered about half an hour before I had to leave. So I'd be like my Kellogg's K, reading the paper, and I'd be like, "Come on, you need to get in the car."
Big breakfast on in the background. Yeah.
Although we weren't allowed to watch Big Breakfast.
Okay, we were.
Which is probably why I ended up reading the paper.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so there was that, but also sort of rewinding a bit further than that. Like, I always enjoyed interviewing people. Like, I was always fascinated fascinated by people's stories. Really, in theory, I should have become a journalist, but there is a real crossover between a publicist and a journalist anyway. And but the other thing is, it's like, I remember when I was around 8 years old and all my friends were out playing, and I was really excited because I had just gone and spent my pocket money on a bunch of magazines. And my mum and dad were like, what is she doing? Like, why is she reading adult magazines? And I was just fascinated by them. And I can't put my finger on it, but it was just something about it really interested me. And then I went on to study business at college, and it was always like the advertising part that fascinated, media part. And then I went to study public relations at university. So I'm one of the very few that went on to have a career with what they studied at university. So yeah, and then my story, the well-spirited story is that I worked on the Dove for Women campaign, and I worked on the Olympics, lots of household brands. But I had some health problems. I've got something called Crohn's disease. And so I trained with the IEN, which is the Institute of Integrated Nutrition in New York, to become a health coach. And that's where this whole world opened for me of like conscious people and brands that weren't in the press and that needed representing. And so I dropped the health coaching thing. We were discussing this earlier. One of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people is to just get out there and go to events and meet up with people in real life. And that was how Well Spirited came about, because I realised that there was enough health coaches out there and people needed a publicist more than a health coach in this day and age.
Yeah, and certainly I feel like as personal brands, as small businesses, especially in the beginning, you're trying to do all of the things. You're trying to write the copy, put your website together, actually do the work, the service that gets you paid, and it can be difficult to step back and actually drive the business forward rather than just being in it. So can I ask you, how do you get paid? Because I wanted to bring up the topic in this podcast of how people get paid, because sometimes it can be a bit fuzzy of like, what does a blogger do? Or how do people make money from YouTube? And all of these new roles that I guess are coming into play that were not an option when I was at school. I mean, we had a careers advisor who had one brown eyebrow and one white eyebrow and was slightly scary looking. So we've had the internet now. Of course, we didn't even have that, you know, all those years ago. So how does it work in terms of business and money for you?
Sure. So at the moment, I work on two packages with people. One is where I represent people for a minimum of 6 months, because that's how long it takes to build up some kind of routine in terms of getting them in the press. So obviously we get paid for that. I have a team that work with me on that. And then the other way is through coaching people. So we do that for anything from 3 to 6 months as well. And by that I basically write a plan for them and I coach them, because obviously through doing the IEN things is where all the jigsaw puzzle starts to come together. Yeah. I'm a qualified coach. So I can coach people, and I've also invested a lot. I know you and I have spoken about this a lot, Nikki, in self-development, because it fascinates me. And so I do a lot of that as well. So not only do I help people get in the press, but I also help with the mindset part for getting visible and for, you know, working through the different blocks that come with that.
Absolutely. Also, I feel like we are the first generation of figuring it out, and we don't necessarily have the people to follow or to look up to, or certainly in the UK as well. I still feel we're quite new in this sphere, and in America or internationally, there is much more of a step-by-step guide, and here we're still going, is it okay? Because we can feel like we have that thing that perhaps we were taught that we shouldn't show off, or we shouldn't really say what we mean, or we just shouldn't shout any louder than anybody else. But when you are running your own business, you kind of have to, because unless you get the message out there, you're not necessarily going to be able to communicate with your customer.
Yeah, and I say to people, like, it's like opening up a shop and without opening the door and putting a sign on. Like, there is literally no point in having a business that you're not going to let anyone know about. Or, you know, I'm very lucky in the sense of that my business runs without very little marketing. The irony isn't lost on me. Like, but I know that's not a sustainable business model by any stretch of the imagination, and that for me shows that there's a demand and there's so many more people to reach. But what I always say to people is that there's literally no point in doing what you're doing if you're just going to like keep it a secret. And equally, like, when you tap into your why, then you really shouldn't be doing it. Like,
yeah, it's interesting in that sort of branding yourself as a success, because there's a lot of people now trying to piece together their own version of what that success is. And for some people, it's not the 7-figure lifestyle. It's not the, like we said earlier about, it's not dancing with P. Diddy on a boat, or, you know, dripping.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fine. I get a bit seasick, actually, so I don't know how good I would not want to be sick in front of P. Diddy. But, oh, I'll see. But, yeah, I mean, I think that dripping in diamonds, or that sort of, you know, and for me as a mum, I feel like sometimes for women there can be that assumption that you work or you're with your children, or you work and you don't see your children. It's a kind of either or. So in terms of success for you, how have you made your career and the way that you earn money work for you and your lifestyle?
It's a really good question, Nikki. Again, like, no coincidences. This morning I was at hospital because I have a very serious illness called Crohn's disease, which a lot of people don't know about because you can't see it. And I was diagnosed with that when I graduated from university, and at the time it was, you know, it wasn't a shock to me. I was almost like, oh great, I can start drinking again now. I know what's wrong with me. And I was due to go to Botswana about a month later, and I was like, oh please, can I just have a doctor's note to go to Botswana? As you do, casual place to be going.
Yeah,
and,
why were you going to Botswana?
Well, I was just, because I just graduated and my friend lived in Botswana.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
I just thought I'd check. Yeah, lovely.
Well, it's also Prince Harry's favourite place to hang out.
It is.
But anyway, so yeah, I do have that illness, and it then I did really well in my career, luckily, before it crippled me. And I, when it did cripple me, which was when I was like in my mid-20s, and I was hospitalised for weeks, and I was on benefits, and I was told that I would never work again. And or if I did work, it would be like in a coffee shop, or, you know, like not under pressure, which PR does have a reputation for being a lot of pressure, and it's a busy environment. And so when you ask the question around, like, how do I get it to fit in my lifestyle, that's exactly it. So I do have days where I'm really tired. I don't want to have to explain my hospital appointments to people. And that is it. So I work to my own schedule, and I work to my own energy levels. And I get to lead like a really rich life without like having to like feel like an ill person.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting when people, and we all have it in our lives, that one person says something like, all you're ever going to do is work in a coffee shop, or you're not good at maths, or you're not the type of person who does that kind of thing. And those statements can be really damaging and stay with us throughout our lives. And so I just commend you so much, the fact that you were like, no, I'm doing this, but I'm figuring it out, and I'm going to do it my way as well.
Thank you.
And we mentioned a little bit that you have staff. How has that been, stepping into a leadership role of, actually, I don't have to do all the things by myself? On one hand, you definitely don't want to do that because of your illness and tiredness levels and things like that. But also because you don't want to just be all about work. You want to have playtime and travel time and whatever you like, just me time away from the business. How has that been in terms of you developing yourself as a leader and then being able to share your vision with people around you?
It's a really good question, Nikki, because it's something that's just recently been coming up for me. It's been a real journey. So my assistant's been with me for a year, and we are actually having a bit of a celebratory day next week, which is super big milestone for a micro business.
Absolutely. And to have the same person throughout rather than somebody who just hops in and out for projects, that's a credit to your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had to work really hard at it, and we've both been on a learning journey. But how it's been is that I have had to work out what I wanted, and that's often the way with these things. Like, my biggest piece of advice to anyone would be just get some stuff in and work it from there. And like, I don't have job descriptions, I don't have a deck to show them like of like what Well Spirited is about, 'cause I'm still figuring it out myself most days.
Right, yeah.
And but equally, like, you start, like, at the moment I've got somebody called Aish who's awesome, and she's really young and sprightly, and that for me I've realised is perfect, because the young ones are really keen to learn from the old ones. I'm not old, I'm 35.
The more experienced ones.
Yeah, and they're willing to like go the extra mile, and they're really grateful for the opportunity.
Yes, because maybe they've been told at university of how hard the job market is. You're lucky to even have an opportunity. Don't waste it. I know that from my cousins are kind of going through that moment, and that's what they're bombarded with at school. Like, you're never going to have a job, and so that's really good that she's using that in a positive way to go, right, let's get stuck in, let me learn everything that I can and really progress quickly.
Yeah, it's really interesting because like I think I heard a stat the other week, I think it was on Girl Boss, and it was like 75% of the workforce by 2020 is going to be like self-employed.
Yeah, I heard that.
Which is really fascinating, and it means, but the other thing that I also watched was a talk which was with Simon Sinek, I think it was, and it was around how Generation X are going to be the worst workforce. So that's the people that are graduating from uni now,
right?
Because they're in this generation where they get everything fast, and they never really had to work for anything. Now, it's not like we come from a generation where we have to work for anything, but it's just a whole other level. Like, things happen really fast on your phone and stuff. So they're always going to be job hopping and wondering why they're not getting what they wanted, because they can't stick it out. And I think that that's probably one of my biggest experiences from leading a team, is working with people to stick it out, and to really get passionate about the job. Because like, my experience of getting a job in this industry, like PR, you're an actress, you know how hard it is to get a job in certain industries. And like, my first job, I got turned down probably about 10 jobs, and when I did get turned down with the 10th job, I called them back up and I said, right, give me the job and I'll do it for free, and I'll show you how that I can do it. And that is, I mean, I didn't even think anything of it. Looking back, that was really ballsy of me. But like,
it's great.
But that's the attitude I expect people to come to me with. And I know it sounds really hard, but I'm like, no, you work your ass off.
Yeah.
Because that is the kind of attitude that we need. Like, you know, there's people who can't get jobs in the world, and I'm going off on one here, but like, you know, you need to be grateful to get a job, and you have to work hard for it, and really good things happen, like having our own businesses and being able to pick our own schedule when you work hard.
Yeah, it's so true. And also, you realise that it's not just what you do in the day of like actually showing up when you're at work, it's the stuff that you do behind the scenes. And one thing that I want to talk a bit more about this is about mindset, and how you keep that in check and you keep on the right path and following where you know that you're supposed to be. So I guess, what do you do when your motivation wavers, or you feel just a bit below? You know, we all have those moments in the month where life can feel harder, feel trickier. So when you feel like you've just been thrown a big bag of you know what, how do you deal with that?
So there's a few things on that. It's a really good question, because it is something that they don't tell you about, people don't really talk about. But so time of the month, I mark that week out, because I slowly feel myself declining, and that week, so I don't have any appointments the week before my period, and I also ask the girls in my team to tell me their periods. so that I can
And I bet you're all in sync now all of a sudden.
Well, actually, Ali, who is my assistant, is breastfeeding and she's not got her periods back yet. But I keep saying, let me know when you get it.
Let me know. When she'll know.
And so that's one thing that I've learned. And because I just get fuzzy brain. So for me, like, I find that when it just gets really hard and I just can't move forwards, I tend to just clock off.
Yeah.
And it's the fastest way. Like, you can push through. And sometimes, I mean, I live in the real world. Like, sometimes you do just have to push through.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible.
Yeah.
But when I do have the opportunity to just let go, I will do that. And I live near some cliffs in the countryside. And I go for a walk there and I listen to a podcast and I'll meditate and I'll go for a coffee. I might go to the cinema. Like, I'll just do whatever I can to switch off. And then before I know it, I'm back in the game again.
Yeah. Because I never get my really good ideas when I'm just sitting at my desk trying to figure it out. I always get my good ideas when I'm driving or I'm walking or I'm in the shower or I'm rescuing my child from the top of the climbing frame. That's when my head is in a different sort of zone, or just when I'm moving about. And I feel like that's why the landscape of working life is changing, because I don't necessarily think that we all do our best work between the hours of 9 to 5, sitting behind a desk, going to the same environment every single day. And I'm glad that that's changing and that people are having a different conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do some quick fire ones now. What is the best thing about your job lifestyle?
The best thing is that I get to work with incredibly inspiring people day in, day out, working in the media, which I just absolutely am fascinated by every day. And I have so much freedom.
Yeah, it's so good. Freedom is everything. If you could do something else for the day, what would you do?
Oh, I'd like to be a TV presenter. Yeah.
Susie's available, ladies and gents. If you're here, what would you do? What would you present?
Oh, I'd be like on a chat show, like a bit, maybe like Holly Willoughby.
Yeah. A great dress, great heels.
Yeah.
Happy days. How do you celebrate your success?
So, you know, I found that really hard when I read that question earlier, and I was like, how do I, like, what I tend to do is call my team up. First thing I do when something good's happened, and we have a little bit of a powwow and cheer. And I tend to, like, I'm really generous as a boss, like, so I tend to send them like gifts, like flowers or something, to say thank you if they've contributed to it. And that's, for me, that's a celebration. I have to say I'm a bit of a consumer sometimes, so I might go and treat myself. Like, I just recently bought, I've got this big pink hat from Versace that I wore today that says love on, and so I might do something like that. Or sometimes I'll just like give myself an afternoon off and go to the cinema.
Yeah, and just, you know, hang out.
Yeah.
Lovely. Brill. Do you have any tools or resources that you just couldn't live without, like technology-wise?
Technology-wise? Well, Instagram. Like, I would say most of my business comes through Instagram, which is madness, really, because it's an app on a phone.
Yeah.
But it is
Instagram never go away.
Yeah.
What will we do? There'll just be people in sort of slightly filtered situations melting away, just being worried. I'm sure you've read loads as a coach, but give me one book from your bookcase that you would recommend, or maybe it's that book that you've bought for people time and time, I'm saying it again, you know, that you just know that they have to read it.
Sure. So it, without a doubt, it's Big Magic.
It's great.
It's a really good book. Our mutual friend Lucy Sheridan threw it at me lovingly at Christmas 2015.
Have the magic.
When I spent with her, and I was just like, she'd just got her book deal and was flying, and I was like, what do I need to do, Luce? I don't know. I was a little bit lost, and I read it, and I pretty much woke up one day and it was like, this is what's happening. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's a mad idea, but screw the health coaching, well-spirited starting, and I don't need any permission for this.
Amazing. Love it. And what advice would you give to your teenage self?
You know what? I would give my teenage self, like, full permission to be herself and like to just step into, like, makes me feel even emotional thinking about it, but like I would just tell her to be weird and like outlandish and brave and loud and funny, just like I feel like I'm starting to step into that girl again and unapologetic.
Absolutely. I found it really frightening when I left school that people said, well, that's the best years of your life gone. And then you think, oh no, I didn't really enjoy myself, or I didn't really feel like me. So the fact that I now know, if there are any teenagers listening, like, your best years are yet to come, because that's how we want life to be, right? To be
every year gets better.
Yeah. Yes. Hooray. I'm 36. Hooray to being in your 30s. Woo, woo, woo.
Definitely.
And finally, where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
So in 5 years' time, from a business point of view, I would like us to be having some hubs in the US and Australia. We already do some work in both of those places. So, and I'd also like to be like really serving like a large number of people through courses, so that I could make a bigger impact in the media rather than the small one-to-one clients that I'm working with at the moment.
Which would free up your time and you'd be able to, oh yeah, really good.
Maybe I'd be a mama as well.
Oh, well, sleep now and enjoy it, and there will be plenty of time for all of that goodness. So, if people want to come find out more about you, where shall they go? What shall they do? Give them all the rules.
Cool. So, we've already discussed this, but I'm having a bit of a rebrand at the moment. But best place to find me is Instagram, as mentioned earlier. So you'll find me. I think it's Suzie_Bartle, or failing that, go onto Nicky's page, and you'll find me tagged in. And I've also got another page called Well Spirited PR. But yeah, I think Suzie Bartle is going to be a safest page to find me, and wellspiritedpr.co. That's our website.
Fantastic. Hey, thanks so much for being my first guest on the podcast.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks everyone for listening. Please subscribe and review, and I'll see you again very soon. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. NickyRaby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to NickyRaby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.